we review the information on the screen, the whole goal of SharePoint is to give you that central space for your organization's information, whether that's an intranet site or whether that is business intelligence that's being included, or if it is anything additional. The goal is to have one central location to give any news and information about the company to that one particular place. As we continue and take a look at this next slide, we'll see an example of how an intranet site can actually look. And notice how it's broken out in different categories across the top, much like what you would see with navigation. You can search for items, information appears across the left, and then you have photos and slideshow information in the center of the screen. You can actually embed PowerPoint presentations and videos in your team or intranet sites so that it helps you give those business priorities and initiatives. Blogs are also available so that the team or the company can get regular updates that are available to them. And there's a very quick ways to be able to make those updates, and they can get alerted from an employee standpoint to know when those updates are available and keep everyone up to date in a very quick and efficient way as part of the process. Now you'll see how this slide builds out to be able to show you how you can share and get that information that's available. But as we change over to this next slide, one of the things that we have the opportunity to do is replace the network drive. And what you're seeing here is an example of being able to organize a team. So in other words, this particular department is the architecture area where some documents are available. But the idea is to be able to have a space for every single part of your organization in a centralized location, much like you would have with the network drives, and allow users or employees to be able to access that information within that team. Sometimes, though, we need to share information amongst teams, and that's where SharePoint gives you that capability. So just like we would add access at the employee network drive for that particular department, the same rules will apply here for SharePoint too, to give that content availability and have that document stored in one location with correct access as needed, where multiple copies of the same document tend to get stored in the network drives today. So we really find that people can work together efficiently and have easy access to the information as needed. As you'll see on this screen with streamlining common tasks, some of the things that you'll find as I build out this slide is that we have the ability to drag and drop content into SharePoint. So for example, one of the things that we'll find here is that you can have the File Explorer window open and just simply drag over the center of the screen and be able to drop those documents within that area. Notice how as the document is moved over a particular name, a preview window appears, and that gives us confirmation that that's really the item that we're looking for and can give a preview of that document and also see who is actually sharing that document, who has access to that document at any point in time. And then you'll also find toward the bottom of the screen, we have the ability to modify that document. So whether you're looking at it from the preview to try and edit it, or you simply select on the name of the file, edit options become available and very easy for you to access and maintain. You'll see on this slide one of the additional options that's available is sharing documents, and you can provide external access as needed or internal access as needed, and it has to be set up on the back end for external access, but you can pick and choose how people are going to access it. Do they require a username and a password? How does all of that get configured? So all of that's done behind the scenes so that you can share your documents and select who is going to get permissions very easily and efficiently to make sure that only people get access that truly need access, whether it's inside or outside of the company. Now, As we transition to this next screen, we'll see that we get the ability to start to work with some options to organize the team and keep everyone in sync. And sometimes that's going to mean things like being able to see a shared mailbox in conjunction with a particular department where multiple people need to access a mailbox, and you also want to have that in the same place as the documents for that particular department. So those are options that are all able to be used within SharePoint. The other thing that you'll see out toward the right-hand side, and I'll build out this slide, is that we have the ability to start to create some simple document workflows. So you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen what the status of the workflow is, and where the item is pointing, it currently says pending review. So we can set up different stages, and we can say everyone can look at this at one time. We can do it in a sequential order where people have to approve it, and you'll be able to get a history of the person that's looked at it and what their approval status is and where that particular document is when it comes to workflow, all in this same area. So it becomes very user-friendly and easy for people to work with. And just a moment on the workflows is that when a workflow is kicked off and a person is designated, they will receive an email with a link to that document to view it and work with it as needed. So they don't always have to go to this web screen and remember that they have to look for something. An email will simply come to them and allow them to work with it as needed. Another option that we start to see here is that we can begin to store and sync and share all of our information in one place. And what we're seeing right here is the inclusion of an option known as our OneDrive. And notice how we're seeing all of the documents that are available for us to work with, and our photo is up on the left-hand side. So we can actually share this information with others and make it available as needed so that it becomes one easy place for people to work and be able to have that information in one location, and allow others to be able to use that document as needed too. And as we continue through this, we'll be able to see a localized view, and this is something a lot of people within the company are already familiar with, and this is our File Explorer view. Notice how you're seeing yellow folders with some green check marks in there. And the way that SharePoint and OneDrive work is that it uses a syncing tool to be able to make sure that all of the documents that you see in the web screen are also shown within this File Explorer window, so that we'll be able to work within these documents just as if we were working in a network drive, and we can open documents from here and we can save documents directly as well to make it very easy for us to work with, especially when we don't always need to work in the web screen and we just need to do day-to-day operations. Because this is replacing a network drive, this local area for syncing would be available to us to leverage, whether we're working in our personal space, known as OneDrive, or the company space, known as SharePoint. When we start to look for searching capabilities, it really helps us to be able to get results very quickly. And what you're seeing here on the right-hand side of the screen is an example of someone doing a search and being able to see those results. Notice how it gives photos where it's possible. As you move your mouse over a document, you're going to see a preview. Filter options become available across the left-hand side of the screen. So it gives ways of being able to get universal searching and have that information available all in one place. Now, to take a little bit closer look at this, you'll be able to see as I build out this slide that we have the ability to get some recommendations based on the search query. And this is some algorithms that are set up in the background that just do their thing, but it basically learns how we work as employees in the company, and then will give some recommendations based off of information within the documents that may be relevant, or a specific tag that was added, being able to look inside of the document for Word, Excel, PowerPoint files to be able to read the information and produce results that way as well. And you'll also see that you have the ability to look on the right-hand side of the screen and be able to get detailed documents to help find answers too, where it says take a look inside there on the right. If it's something that you've recently searched for or searched for at some point in time, in the middle of the screen, you'll begin to see that you can find that information again very quickly. So you don't have to hunt through the needle in the haystack looking for that one document that you found once before. You'll be able to see that relevant information from a historical perspective and pull the information up as needed. And other options that are available for search are much like traditional web searching that we find out on the internet today. So in general searches, from an employee standpoint, they can go out to their internet browser and they can look for a specific video or type in the name of a keyword and be able to find that video as a result. And this is a similar aspect that we find within SharePoint, is that we have the searching capabilities to be able to see those videos. So if you do have videos that are stored as part of the organization, you'll be able to see this information widely available to make sure that you have this readily included within the search results, in addition to any of those documents that may be available too. So other options that we begin to see as we transition over to this next slide is trying to find people. And oftentimes employees run into scenarios where they're listening to someone on a conference bridge and they're not quite sure who that person might be. So they'll look at them on LinkedIn and understand what their title is and information about them. But believe it or not, that information is actually available within SharePoint and OneDrive. And by putting in that personalized information, it saves from having to go to that external resource, but also allows us to see some information that's specific to the company within this area. So it really gives ways of being able to detect their title and information about them, projects that they've worked on, and even documents that they posted too, all from getting information for searching for a particular person or a skill or expertise. We'll even find that you get recommendation options in here. So if you're looking for a specific skill and you type in that skill, you can actually see this kind of information here, where you'll be able to look up and find out who is an expert in a particular area. This becomes really helpful when we start to work in larger organizations where users or employees may have placed a specific name to a document or associated themselves with a document. And that helps to understand their level of expertise on a particular subject. So when we are looking for a person with a specific expertise, if their name was associated with a document, that will help to produce their answers here as being considered an expert. So it really can help try and find not just who they are, but also the work that they may actually produce within the organization to be of service. Now, to switch gears for a minute and talk about business intelligence offerings, it is an add-on that you can make part of your SharePoint experience, and this is where we can start to aggregate large amounts of data or just simply an Excel file and create something known as a Power View. And that's what we're starting to see here, where we're taking advantage of data analytics and being able to make a dashboard view out of them that can be published and available for others to see. So this is a great way to be able to take advantage of these analytics and put them out there for the company and be able to place restrictions around them on who should see what, so that within the organization we don't have to worry about sending out Excel files, waiting for people to look at them, not knowing how to filter out, having to make multiple copies of the report, not being able to make sure it's always the correct one and the most up-to-date item. So this dashboard option can really assist with all of those challenges and making sure that it's the latest and greatest information and that it's currently available for everyone across the board to be able to take a look at and see. So as we continue over to the next slide, we'll begin to see that there is something called a connection. And one of the things that's included is going to be a community site. So I'll just continue over so that you can see more or less what that looks like. If you've ever been involved in a discussion thread, it's usually an initial post, and within that forum you get people to respond and provide information. And this is known as a community, but it allows to be able to keep those discussions interactive and also get some statistics around it as well. So it's a newer feature that's been updated within this version of SharePoint. And at the time of this recording, this is the equivalent of SharePoint 2013 that we're discussing, but it does give the ability to keep information handy and have it readily available for those forum type of inquiries that we need to make available within the intranet. One of the other options that you'll find just in general is that SharePoint will work on multiple devices. So you'll see, for example, that there's a phone device and then there's also a tablet device. The one thing that I'll mention is that it's not specific these days to having to be tied to a PC or to a Windows phone. There are apps across the board that are available for the Office 365 version of SharePoint. And of course, the web browser is available for those tablet devices where an app is not currently available. The great thing about this is, though, that you do get functionality available through the web browser across platform for different devices to be accommodating to the type of form factor and device that you tend to be using. And as we continue through, sharing content becomes very easy. You can send a link to someone and be able to avoid having to route that around as a physical email attachment. And again, this can be internal or external use whenever we start talking about making sure that that content can be shared amongst others. And one of the other features that's available is making apps and distributing them amongst people within your organization. These apps can be line of business that are specific within your company, but then you'll see on the screen that there are some more broad options that are available too. And these are going to be using technologies like HTML5 and .NET and JavaScript, but it's making these options available so that it's flexible, it's scalable, and that it's available to employees whenever they are working. Now, the technology you'll see is built on this next slide here, and it can leverage basically REST APIs and pull the data in so that the information can be exposed where needed and have a marketplace that's available. Now, there are special line of business opportunities, as I mentioned, that are available that don't necessarily have to be published for the world to see within the marketplace. So as I'm mentioning these options to you, don't rule out the fact that you can recreate something specific for your company, because that is an opportunity to take advantage of. You don't have to be a custom developer that's going to offer this to everyone in the world, but you can take advantage of these technologies based on what you specifically need within your company and be able to manage and leverage those items as needed. Now, one of the other things that we'll start to see as we transition over to this new slide is that everyone in the organization can try these items as needed. And this is something in the back end or behind the scenes that can be set up that says we're going to allow this, we're not, what apps are we going to allow, but there's a configuration that happens behind the scenes to let users see this in the store as they need to and be able to take advantage of them and interact with these kinds of features where they need to. And as we continue on to this next screen, you'll see this is an example of what the apps actually look like. Once they are approved, they become available for download and would be in a screen like this, known as an app directory that's created to allow the business users to be able to leverage this and keep those downloads available in a safe place and only allow what needs to be downloaded within a specific area. And you'll find that other features that are available just in general from a site design perspective become very user web friendly. So in other words, if you take a look at a screen like this, you're going to see that you can create these dynamic kind of sites and use that familiar web design tool. Now, in this case, the web design tool can be SharePoint Designer, or It can be some inline options that are available through ribbons on a screen, but the goal is to create a familiar experience and be able to make sure that things can adapt and change as needed, and that they're very user-friendly for everyone who plans to review and look at that information that's included as part of SharePoint and even on OneDrive too. Now, the whole goal of working in both SharePoint and OneDrive is to make sure that information can be accessible. So whether you currently are looking at a hybrid approach that includes both cloud and on-prem, you want to stay private and keep everything completely on-prem, or you want to even take a look at Office 365 where that public hosted cloud offering direct through Microsoft will be a benefit. Some people will even go into the realm of looking at Azure, where SharePoint and OneDrive can be a part of that experience and giving that server kind of environment, but stored in a very safe and secure way. So regardless of whether you're looking at something like Azure or whether you're looking at something like Office 365 for your SharePoint and OneDrive experiences, it's built for the cloud. So that means that it's going to be safe, it's going to be secure, and your data is going to be protected when you are in that cloud environment. SharePoint and OneDrive are both built for the future. So that means that REST protocol uses OAuth 2.0. That's going to allow the secure communication so that when you're creating those apps and making them available for everyone, that they're easy to get to and that they are done in a secure way when transmitting data or using remote application. So you can remote into products like Azure or Linux or other programs that are available using that REST option and be able to pull that data through in a secure way and make it available to users as needed, or have users complete information and push out through this data source too. So with looking at SharePoint and OneDrive, the goal is to try and manage costs wherever possible and to be able to scale out and not have to worry about trying to continuously evolve over the course of time. So this is more specific to the cloud offering, but the goal is to be able to scale out, keep it on a shoestring budget, and make it easy for you to maintain and have all of those options in there without having to worry about so much infrastructure. So that's where you'll see on this next slide that you can run SharePoint in the cloud, and that there are going to be some new features that are getting adopted through the cloud offerings like Office 365 quicker than what you'll see in the server versions. But with this, the goal is to reduce the total storage footprint that you may have, but also to give you some scalability and performance improvements so that employees can get to the data instantly and work with it as needed without having a long lag time or latency time frame because of the fact that they're working in the cloud. And whenever we start talking about working just in general with document storage, we have to think about making advances in records management and e-discovery. So if those two items are needed, then SharePoint has a great story for you. So to give you a bit of an idea, you're going to see here a sample screen that's going to discuss, and I'll build this out so you can see it. But what it starts to do is to talk about how you can actually plug in some keywords, put in some restrictions of who should actually get access and how that data should be managed, and only certain people can get that information. That's going to include retention policies for sites and mailboxes to preserve the content. And this really goes in conjunction with both Exchange as well as SharePoint. But the goal is to have information safe and secure. So whether it's a record retention where you have to, by compliance purposes, keep it for a certain number of time, or if you're in a situation where from an e-discovery purpose you have to maintain that data, this information gives everything to you and ensures that your data is safe and secure and locked down for those compliance features. And another option that SharePoint is going to give you is self-service site creation. So for example, if you have a template that you want to use and you want users to be able to create them on their own, and they're knowledgeable enough to do that on their own, then this option would be available, and you can control how those sites are provisioned and automate that process so that it reduces the total amount of calls and support desk tickets to be created. So this is an option that's already included as part of SharePoint. We just configure it to make sure that it's available for that self-creation as needed. So in summary, from a user experience, the goal of SharePoint and OneDrive is to make it easy and adjustable for employees, no matter where they're working, whether it's on a device of a specific design or whether it's working at their desk, making sure they can get their information easily, and replacing that network drive or that My Desktop and document place that they tend to work in, but still maintaining that sacredness that we tend to find with working in documents from a compliance standpoint and keeping that information available in a safe and secure way. Being able to have users search for information and find information quickly, share documents with others and make them available, and even including options like business intelligence so that those data analytics are available for everyone that's used to working with those to see in one single place. So when we think about working with SharePoint and OneDrive, it goes much further than just a company intranet. It becomes your data center for employees to access their information and work with one another and share information in a safe and secure way, but also keeping the document within one place and leveraging the technology of allowing others to use it as needed. So that concludes our learning of how to work in SharePoint and the general overview of that. And for additional information, you can visit